Peter, thank you. And thank you to all of you for coming. Thank you to Andy and to Mark in particular for leading off. Of course, as they've quite rightly emphasised, they are the clients. And clients themselves alone can't do this stuff. I would equally accept the supply chain can't do this stuff, but we are an important part of it, and it's the collection of the whole. And when I come to sort of concluding, I will return to this point, that one of the real values of this is that it will have supply chain clients, government, private, public sector clients, the whole range on the MBA, which I think is a real value to this particular course. Okay, let's just talk a bit from the supply chain perspective. Okay, so there's a sort of supply chain collection of logos. If your logo's not on there, I apologise. It was just a random spread of the ones that sprung to mind on the day when I put the slide together. I had to be reminded to put Costain on, but for those of you who know me, there's good reason for that. I still sometimes say, who do I work for? And it's Costain. But I got that. Well, why would we want to come on this course? Well, the first thing is that actually, despite what some people may think of each other or clients on the supply chain, we really want to do this stuff well. We really want to work hard at it because actually it makes business sense to do it. Because if we do well, we make more money, we sustain ourselves as businesses, and actually quite a lot of us, and to pick on Andy's point, we do really enjoy doing it too. So we can keep ourselves in the business that we've worked in. We also bring a lot of value and can share that value. Because there are components of, and I recognise people from the client side who've worked in the supply chain, and I work in the supply chain who work client side. The sharing, the value that we can bring as a collective group is just enormous. And of course, if you arrive on the course, you'll benefit from that. Okay, so sharing is really important. We as supply chain members, though, we need to keep up with the latest thinking. We need to bring it, but we also need to share it and develop it. So it's really important to do things like this MBA to maintain that preeminent position. And of course, we want to deliver benefits for our clients and customers. So why wouldn't we want to be at the cutting edge of all this sort of thing? And of course, there is looking back into our own companies. We actually want to inspire our own people. And we can do that by being at the leading edge. We can do that by being involved in the sort of mega programs that you've seen already. And so it's important that we come to this. And of course, well, let's pick up on the people, please. Let's start with people, because that's often where we end up, and I'd like to start there. Okay, now this originally had lots of other academic institutions on it. Where's Giuliano? Giuliano removed them, because apparently there's some legal reason why you can't show Cambridge and Imperial and King's and all the rest of it. So it should have been a collection of universities there to show how we capture learning and how we pass that learning around the industry and on to others. Well, there's another group, and I think, it survived, okay. So it's clearly okay to use this slot. So here's another, we've got some of these bodies represented in the room today. These are other parts of the learning equation. But my question really is that enough? So there's a question. Now, I'm now going to try an experiment. This may go horribly wrong, so stand by. What I'd like you to do, please, is to think back over your career to around about 18, just when you left school. I know for some people that's a very long time ago. For one or two, it's not quite so far. But I think all of you can manage it. So go back to your 18th. Now, since you were 18, I'd like you to estimate, and this is a real one of those, okay? Estimate what proportion of your working life, or including university academic life, you have spent learning, training, or developing yourself. Or others have spent on you. Okay, what percentage of your time have you spent doing that? Just have a think and come up with a number. Okay, now the first number that pops into your head is going to be the number I'm going to ask you to stick with, because you're not going to have a great amount of time to deliberate on this. Okay, right. So what I'd now like you to do is to all stand up. Okay, you can probably see what's coming. Okay, so I'm now going to start counting up. And I'll do it in low numbers initially and then bigger lumps later to see how many people we end up with standing at the end of the session. So I'm going to start with, if you said 1%, sit down. Okay. 2. Okay, let's jump to 5. flog a dead horse too hard. 5%, okay. 15%. 20%. 25%. Okay. 30%. And I'm going to say well done to the rest and ask you all to sit down now. Okay. That was an interesting experiment. I am actually surprised and impressed by how much time many of you have managed to spend learning your career. Now, I'm going to introduce you to an institution called the Baldrige Foundation. Has anyone heard of the Baldrige Foundation? Okay, you're obviously not Americans. If you were in America, you'd all put your hand up now. Because the Baldrige Foundation, I think it was a government establishment originally. It was set up about 50 years ago, and it was designed to measure the performance of initially public and then later private sector organisations. And in true bureaucratic American style, it involves a questionnaire about 1,000 pages long with millions of questions, and you have to fill it in, and it's really intrusive. But for those who are data geeks in the room, this was the beginning of data-based evidence about performance management. And they do a whole load of stuff, as you can imagine. But one of the figures they pulled out was that the most successful businesses and organisations, public sector of course as well, spend at least 20% of their time developing, training and educating their people. So at the moment, actually, I mean, about 30% of this room have done that. But it's really important. Now, the other slight problem is, and I'm not going to go through the whole shooting match again, but I'm guessing that much of your training, learning, development has been, if I can put it this way, early career loaded. Yeah? I mean, if I were to say everyone over the age of 50, when have you done a degree since you were 50? I'm guessing the answer's probably not. Someone's going to prove me wrong. Andy's probably going to prove me wrong. You're probably doing a PhD or something, I know. Just spare time. Okay. 30 years ago. Well, that's sort of my point, yeah. And so, you know, I'm really banging the nail hard home here, but this is the point behind this course. I'm not suggesting you have to be over 50 to do it, but the point I'm making is that as you develop your experience in your career, you need to continue that learning process. And this sort of MBA is an ideal way of picking that up. Right, complexity. Does anyone in the room know what kneffin means? Go on.
Sorry, being mind blank, this is a Welsh word.
It is a Welsh word, yes, you're absolutely right, yes. Don't worry, you've done 100% more better than most people identifying as a Welsh word. It means habitat, environment, if you like. And this is a diagram I poached from a friend of mine. Its originator was David Snowden, who developed as part of his his solution-focused theory. And I think the point here is that, particularly after the presentations earlier, you'll recognise that we're probably not in this territory, the clear, simple side of things. We're probably not even in this territory, actually. We're hopefully not in this territory, chaos, although after the last rail driver strike it seemed like it. This is our sort of sphere of this is our home, this is where we live. No, darn thing's gone to sleep on me. Just give me a second. So, why is that of significance? So, Andy, Mark, even I think Martin as well, have all pointed out the characteristics of the environment we live in, the characteristics of the environment that we operate in as companies and as clients and are building our projects in. And it's all about this constant change in the sustainability drivers, the constant change in the social drivers, the constant change in technology, the digitalization, the data that now flows through everything, and the scale and size of the projects we're doing, the interactions and all the rest of it. So we're sitting in a complex environment. So we've got to prepare people for that complexity. Okay, so let's just have a look at some of the aspects of the environment we're in. As leaders, and I'm going to shift slightly now from supply chain to talk about the leadership again. I'm delighted that both Mark and Andy have introduced this because it is absolutely fundamental. I mean, if you're not a leader in the industry, then why are you sitting here now? Why are you interested in doing an MBA, which is going to build you up to be leading one of the big construction programs, projects, or be a leader in it? And so there are some tools for simplifying it. There are some tools for bringing it home to people and being able to develop and deliver the sort of agreement around common goals and the alignment and the structures that that drives through the processes that we build is absolutely critical. So what do we need our leaders to be able to do? Well, they've got to have the competence, the confidence and the capability to work in a highly collaborative environment with multiple agencies and align them around some clear and simple goals, targets, and purposes. And don't worry, I'm not going to go down the Simon Sinek route now, but I'm happy to if anyone wants to afterwards. So, many of you have seen that, and I know that Mark promotes this a lot on HS2, and I think it's a fantastic book, and if you've ever heard Stanley McChrystal talking, you know that he's a very compelling speaker. But how many people have really thought through the implications of what he's talking about? Now, we actually had a really good debate in March when we were doing the modules, because a couple of the guys from HS2, I think it was the SES, came and talked about it, put it up, said we're all doing networking, and it's all fantastic. And I quietly challenged them and said, well, hang on, guys. There is a whole layer of culture underneath the McChrystal solution, which we may not be generating on our programs. Because most of us, I mean, there's quite a lot of people who met each other on various programs here, but when we come to the start of a program, we meet a whole bunch of new people for the first time, and we really know nothing about them. We may think we know some of them, but most of them we don't. And so they're bringing a whole range of cultures, a whole range of skills, training, I'm going to use the word doctrine, for those who are ex-military, they'll understand it, to the game. That's not the case with the McChrystal background, because broadly, the people who came to the game in Iraq when he was doing his magic all had a very similar or similarly related common doctrine behind them. So we have a totally different challenge. So we need to prepare our leaders to be able, at the beginning of programs, to reset them at various stages of the program, to build the teams, to build the networks, because it's now more than just a team. The team of teams is the right expression, but the capability to do that. So we've got to embed that and build that into our leaders. And final picture is just to re-emphasise a point that's been made several times, and I have no shame in banging this nail home as hard as I can, because it is so important. And that is that when we walk around, when we do things, we do cast a shadow. And that leadership shadow is often inadvertent, sometimes it's deliberate, and that's, provided it's right, that's credible. But we do cast that shadow, and we need to understand the impact that what we do has on the people around us. And Andy said hero leadership is dead, and I would agree. But now we're looking at the style of leadership. So when we look at our people who come on this course, what sort of questions are we asking of them as leaders? And the first question I would ask is, do they know themselves? As in, know themselves. Are you self-aware as a leader? Have you analysed, thought about what it is that makes you a leader, that makes you tick? Because if you don't know yourself, how can you stand up in front of other people and demonstrate to them through the shadow, which you will cast whether you like it or not? And then the question is, okay, how do I go about building my teams, my networks? What are the skills I need to do? Now, many people, and I know several in the room, are very good at this naturally. But being good naturally may not be enough, particularly in this constant, complex, shifting sands environment that we're in. Right. I would also commend the MBA for a lot of those reasons. If you think that you've got the answers to all of the things that I've said in the last sort of 8 or 9 minutes, then actually, congratulations, fantastic. You probably don't need to come and do the MBA. If you've got any doubts about any of the things I've been talking about and your ability to do it, or your people's ability to do it if you're looking at others to put on this, then this MBA will provide you with a lot of the food for thought, context, framing for you to be able to think through those problems. With that, I will say thank you and farewell. Great stuff.